Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on an exclusive vinyl pressing with bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, English Teacher, and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get Rough Trade's Album of the Month, Camera Obscura's Look to the East, Look to the West for a third of the usual price. By signing up, you'll be getting Rough Trade's exclusive issue of the album on opaque purple in a gatefold sleeve, plus a bonus CD containing 5 demos. Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off at the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Head to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off Rough Trade's Album of the Month today. This offer is for UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Hey Hawk fans, even if it's been years since you graduated, the Hawkeyes are your team for life. Well, you can have a Farm Bureau agent for life, and auto, and home and business insurance. Imagine that, one insurance agent for everything. It's that simple. Former Hawkeye and All-American Mitch King can be your Farm Bureau agent for life. Call Mitch at 319-653-5428. Tell him the walk-on sent you. That's 319-653-5428. It's your future. Let's protect it. Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company.
I'm 100, I want part-time jobs. I'm 100, I want part-time jobs. I've been working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 101, 101.
All right, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. I'm Giles Bidder and I speak to all different kinds of bands and musicians about the 8-hour days they didn't want to do, the sea legs, the car legs, all of the different types of work that have gone into making their career in music, giving them a life in music. And on today's episode, we got Molly Lewis, the professional whistler. You may have heard her on the Barbie soundtrack, Meeting Ruth. She whistles on that. She's performed with Dr. Dre, Karen O, and Jackson Brown. And she's got a new record out. It's called On the Lips. It is just, I've never heard someone whistle like this. Spoiler, at the end, she whistles for us. And she does this thing with her lips where it's like, no shit, it does this thing where it's like making sound that I have no idea how it comes from. It's like real beauty, it's real magic. It was a total pleasure to speak with Molly and ask what it's like in real life to make a life as a whistler. So that's what we got coming up today. Cheers for listening to the podcast. If you enjoy this, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening, on Spotify or Apple or Stitcher, I don't know. Make sure you subscribe because that's really helpful to our show. And if you've got 30 seconds or a minute, if you can leave a review with some nice complimentes if you want, then that'd be massively, massively appreciated. Thank you. I hope you're doing good. Huge shout out to our brilliant sponsors, 2000 Trees Festival. It's a great independent festival here in the UK. It's in Cheltenham, down towards the beautiful southwest. It's happening from the 10th to the 13th of July. And loads of great stuff, from folk to indie to metal and hardcore. The Gaslit Anthem are headlining, so are the Chats and Don Broco. Manchester Orchestra are playing, Hot Mulligan, Empire State Bastards, Crawlers, Palm Reader, Creeper, loads of great stuff at 2000 Trees. If you're in the UK, or maybe you want to travel to the UK for some great British summertime down in Cheltenham, you can head to 2000trees.co.uk, snag your ticket. If you use 101pod as the voucher, you can get 50 quid off your weekend ticket. All right, coming up, we got Molly Lewis here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Cheers for listening. 101 part-time jobs.
So my family moved to Australia from Los Angeles when I was 12. And we moved to a tiny town in Australia. So from LA to Mullumbimby, which is quite a change. And yeah, I guess, I was kind of, I was quite confident. I really stuck to my guns. Like I had a wheelie backpack that I loved because my school, it was kind of it was the local public school. I think here public is different. Right?
It kind of depends what class you're in. So if you're in the higher class, if you're upper class, public school is actually private school.
Okay, yeah. So
it's complicated.
This was the local, like
a non-fee paying school.
Yes. And we didn't even have lockers. So like you'd have to carry all your stuff around all day, and to save my back, I got this wheelie backpack, but no one else had one, and it was like the amount of bullying and jokes I got about this bat, like, oh, you're going to miss your plane. Or like if I, rode it across the dirt, it was like, oh, it's an off-road vehicle. And it would get stolen. It would get hidden in trees. I'd find it like in the boys' bathroom. It was the endless, butt of jokes. But I never gave it up. And kind of by the end, like I noticed a few other wheelie backpacks appearing. So yeah, I guess I prided myself maybe on kind of just, being myself.
A pretty early age to learn that as well. I mean, you're impressionable all your life, but especially...
Yeah, well, high school's hard. And, especially, I don't know. I'm sure other high schools are hard. I don't have any other experience. But, this was, the kind of... culture of this school was pretty wild. It's funny when I go back home to this town to visit my family and I link up with these friends I had, these girlfriends from school. We just, we talk endlessly about kind of the way that the boys in this school would bully women and kind of like put people down and just like that we all made it out of this alive and like with self-esteem was kind of incredible because it was rough.
That stuff has aged badly when we think about the jokes that people would say when we were younger and people making like loads of boys that just the go-to insult was, are you gay?
Oh, yeah.
It's aged so badly.
I mean, yeah, it was bad. But...
What was it like? So, I mean, when I think of LA high school, I think of like the characters in The Secret History or who's that massive famous author that is... I think of like coquettishness and people with money and
Bret
drugs.
Easton Ellis.
Bret Easton Ellis, exactly. That's what I'm thinking of.
I mean, this is what's funny. I left LA just before high school, so I didn't get to experience what it would have been like. And sometimes I wonder what I would have been like if I'd stayed there, because I do have friends. Basically, I left LA and then I went back 10 years later, and and so I have friends who, were there the whole time and went through high school there, and I'm always interested in what it was like for them, because I'm always like, wow, that could have been me. There was just a lot of wealth. There's a lot of, some of my friends were going to school with, Lily Rose Depp, and, these people who have big celebrity parents and who are given expensive cars for their 16th birthdays, and
Imagine.
I think there is a lot more drugs. There's just I've heard about kind of these birthday parties they'd go to for 16-year-olds that were like, they'd get someone famous to come perform for that. It was just like, it was a lot. So I'm kind of glad I didn't. I had a totally different experience. I moved to a small town where, people walk around barefoot, and it's very, very different. But I'm glad to have had that.
Dusty, Australia.
Yeah.
What was the closest big city to Bim?
Mullumbimby.
Mullumbimby
is a small town that's close to another town called Byron Bay, which people have heard about sometimes because it's quite a tourist destination.
Gold Coast.
Yeah, Gold Coast. Well, we don't like the Gold Coast. Gold Coast is an hour north, and that's the Cold Coast. That's kind of I guess that's a city. And then Brisbane is 2 hours north.
A lot of like sort of garage rock bands from those, like kind of pub rock. Was that a thing happening when you were a kid?
It's funny. My school kind of the popular music in my high school was hardcore.
Yeah.
Parkway Drive was
Great
Parkway
band.
Drive is the name of a street in Byron Bay, and that's where they were all from. So Parkway Drive, like all of this like hardcore scene was big for my high school, and so that's not what I was into.
Do you know that band? Do you know those people?
So what's so funny is like I obviously knew of them growing up in this town because they were from this town, and all the kids, most of the kids were into this. And I had a friend who was dating one of them, even though he was 7 years older. This kind of thing. They were around. It was this scene, but Parkway Drive. I was never into this. I was quite against it, actually. But
because they were kind of mad. I've seen some old school filmed at home footage from them, and they would like have dirt bikes, and they'd be jumping off buildings into pools, and they were kind of crazy.
It was pretty crazy, and the boys that were into this music and this scene were kind of the main aggressors of the high school. So it was kind of like not my scene at all. But a few years ago, I got a DM from one of the guys in Parkway Drive, and they were looking for some whistling for one of their tracks. And I guess they had like looked up professional whistler online or something, and then they came across me, and they were like, "Whoa, she's from Australia. She's from this town." And so that really felt like a funny full circle thing.
Did you tell him?
Oh yeah, I was like, I'm from Mullum. I went to Byron High. Like
So what happened? Did it happen? Did you do the session?
I did it. Yeah,
Right.
I did the session, and they're really sweet. They're huge. I kind of didn't realize they're like a massive band. They're going on these giant tours. They have this whole setup where their drummers like spinning in a rig, and there's pyrotechnics. And anyway, so they asked me if I'd go on tour with them in Europe, and it was going to be for a month. And on a tour bus, like performing this song and maybe like doing some other stuff as part of the show. And I kind of made a joke. I was like, only if I get to appear out of flames in a leather bikini. And they were like, okay. But I don't know. In the end, like I was working on my own stuff. Yeah. I didn't have time to go on tour with them, even though I would have liked to have done like 1 or 2 shows.
A month's a long time.
A month with like all of these boys in their tour bus. I was just like, I don't know. But yeah, I would have liked to have done that, to have had that experience. It's like, this crazy metal world.
Yeah. And if you grew up as a teenager thinking, that's not my crew, those aren't my people,
and then I'm suddenly like really part of the crew. Yeah, that would have.
You're in the band.
Yeah, in the band. Yeah, no, that would have. I just needed to. I wished I could have done one show with them, but maybe.
I mean, you've collaborated with so many brilliant people. Anyone who knows of you knows that you've worked with Dr. Dre, you've done stuff with Karen O. The guy at my coffee shop, the waiting room in Deptford, Dom, who's an Australian, was saying how you've collaborated with a load of people he knows in a kind of very small circle. And I've forgotten even the name of the record label he said, but you are someone. You're a social butterfly.
Oh,
when it comes to whistling,
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, what I've always loved about being a whistler is that it can transcend genres, and that's why I have been able to work with people across all of these different genres, from Dr. Dre to Parkway Drive to whistle. It has no distinct place. It can. And so it's been really fun being a session musician in that way, and being able to kind of find myself in these different worlds. And
but it's not an obvious journey.
No, definitely not.
So it must have had some difficulties. There's no roadmap.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, there's not even a whistle teacher. Like I remember in high school, I studied piano. I was taking piano lessons, and I remember my piano teacher was also a vocal teacher, and I remember thinking maybe she can help me kind of hone this, because I liked whistling. I knew I was good at it, but I wanted someone to give me some guidance or something. And I think I remember asking her, and she was kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. But there were people on YouTube. There was a guy named Whistler's Brother, that was his handle, and he would do these kind of whistle tutorials and talk about whistling. And so I remember following him and asking him some questions. But there's, it isn't really a thing. So. And
you had, your parents were encouraging. They got you into some like talent competitions, whistling competitions.
Oh, no. Well, no, they, so, I think as my parents could tell, this was something I was interested in and kind of doing. I must have been doing it a lot. It's funny because I don't remember that. Like, it's not like I recall whistling all the time, but I probably was. I did go to my high school reunion a few years ago, and people were saying like, oh yeah, I remember you whistling down the hallway. So I guess I was doing it. But my parents obviously noticed, and they showed me a documentary about a whistling competition called Pucker Up. And seeing this documentary was kind of the first time I found out that there were whistle competitions that existed in the world, and there were whistlers who went and placed and competed, and I kind of saw it, and I thought I thought I was as good as they were, and my dad said if I ever got into the competition, he'd take me there. And so I definitely always remembered those words, and kind of when I finished college and I wasn't really sure what to do with my life. I was living in Berlin for a few years. I was kind of working a bunch of different odd jobs, and I remembered those words, and I was like, oh, I'll apply for this competition and check it out and see how it goes.
And you won?
No.
You came second?
No. I came like fourth or something. It was my first time performing on stage. I was really nervous.
And that must affect you.
Oh, yeah. It's really hard to whistle if you're nervous. Also, it's really hard. like, this is something that took me a long time to get over. I'm a big smiler. I smile if I'm nervous. I smile, it's something I kind of do. And you can't whistle and smile. And if you're standing in front of a big group of people on a stage and you're nervous about it and also feels kind of comical what you're doing, it's kind of difficult to keep a straight face. So yeah, for a long time, it was just very hard to, like, stay in the zone. So that took a lot of practice.
Because you feel your face getting red.
Honestly, I like closing my eyes a lot when I perform, just because I don't want to see anyone looking at me. It's like, hard to to look at. But
and it's quite spiritual, earnest. Whistling is
it feels personal. You know? I guess maybe in the same way singing does. It's it's your body, it's your own instrument. You have nothing to hide behind. It's coming out of you. So it's like it feels quite personal. It's but no, this competition was the first time I'd ever performed in front of anyone, and I there is a video of it, and when I look at it, I can tell I'm nervous, and I'm not kind of doing, like, I've definitely gotten better since then. But yeah, so I didn't get a trophy. I got a plaque for the whistler who traveled the greatest distance to get there, which I think is more valuable than any other trophy. You
meant it more.
Yeah, but also it's just the most ridiculous thing I own, and I could have retired right then and there.
What does the plaque say?
It says, to Molly. It's a gold, like a wood and gold lettering plaque, and it says, for Molly Lewis, the whistler who traveled the greatest distance to get to the International Whistling Competition in Lewisburg, North Carolina.
I mean, that's going to change meaning over the years.
Yeah.
Molly Lewis traveled the greatest distance in her life.
Yeah.
101, 101 part-time jobs. 101, 101, 101 part-time jobs.
Berlin working odd jobs. I mean, 101 part-time jobs is this show. There's always going to be a conversation of musicians working during the day so they can play at nighttime. 99% of musicians more will be not having a full-time career playing music.
Yeah. And
you see the bar bands playing on the Saturday, Sunday night. And I think it's important that we celebrate people who aren't full-time musicians, because it's often seen as a detriment or a bad thing. It's like, no, they're not professional. And I'd like to kind of work against that idea.
Yeah.
Because that's not what music's about.
No, and that's why I admire musicians so much, because they do so much work for very little payback often. And it's because they love music and they like playing, and I've always admired musicians so much for that, because it's so often not about money.
Did you know that in Berlin? Were you a music fan in Berlin, working odd jobs, thinking, I want to be involved in music?
No, I didn't start kind of playing music as a live professional thing until I moved to LA a few years later. No, Berlin, I kind of, I mean, I didn't think it was a possibility. I wasn't trying to make it happen. It was something I did in private, or, if I'd walk around the river or something, but it wasn't something I thought was a possibility. No, I was just working odd jobs to survive and, get along. But it wasn't for a few years that I started kind of performing, and when I did start performing, it was I had a full-time job.
What were you doing?
So when I first moved to LA, I had a bunch of different jobs. Oh wow. So I think the first time I got a whistle opportunity was I got this temporary job at the legal offices of American Idol. So I was going through background checks for American Idol wannabe contestants. And it was this job that I took because it was temporary. It was supposed to be 3 months, and I really needed work, and I just needed something regular. And it was my first office job, and it was very much office job, like cubicles, office building, like very kind of cheesy office where, you know, I guess, well, this company obviously had a lot of money and they're trying to like boost employee morale. So they had like bought a Banksy that was in the, like the common room.
An original.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's like, why don't you just kind of pay your employees more? But yeah. And like Donut Fridays and, you know, everyone, if you want to do staff yoga, it's on Thursdays. I'm like, hell no. But yeah, it was funny because I just moved to LA. I was living in a really, it was my worst living situation. It was a $400 a month room in this house with 3 boys. And the only way to get to the bathroom was walking through a boy's room. And so I would just not go to the bathroom. I'd like wait till I went to the office. So I'd kind of put on my blazer and my office gear, and I'd be so dirty, you know, go to the office and like, you know, go through these background checks. And it was a very menial job. It was like, you really didn't have to have any brain power. It was just like making sure people had filled out these forms. If they hadn't, you were circling things and emailing it back to them. And there was a lot of photocopying and just like scanning. But yeah, so I would just kind of sit there and listen to music and like do my thing.
Yeah. Try and get through it.
Yeah, but I'd been to a music festival with a friend, and we'd met Dev Hines, Blood Orange. Yeah. And his girlfriend at the time, Samantha Urbani, and we'd been talking with them, and my friend had told them I was a great whistler. And I remember Samantha being like, oh my God, like you have to record something with us. Like you, and anyway, so I got their info but I didn't really think anything would come of it. You know, I was just kind of like, well, cool. That was fun. And then I was at this office, you know, one day going through all my things, and Dev messaged me, and he messaged me some like tunes. He was like, these would be cool to whistle. I know. I was just so blown away because I was like, wow, that would be so fun. And
he hadn't heard you.
He had. I think he'd like, I don't know, I'd sent him something, or I can't even remember. Maybe it was like a song that I'd recorded. I don't know. I can't remember.
And he was Blood Orange then, was
yeah, he? And I really loved his music. I was a fan.
Test Icicle's great band.
Yeah. Anyway, and so he lives in New York, and he was working on something, and he was like, I'd love to have you record on this. And yeah, so that was the first time I was like, wow, I gotta do that, you know? And I'm just in this cubicle and like kind of thinking that'd be fun. And I was gonna be in New York a few weeks later because I'd booked a ticket a year earlier to Carnegie Hall. One of my favorite musicians, Jordi Savall, this amazing viola player, early modern music, like this. I love his playing and his music. Anyway, he was going to be playing at Carnegie Hall, and I had just booked a ticket thinking like, I'll find a way to get to New York. And so, yeah, and then with Dev messaging me about this, I was like, well, this is great. And so I went, and I met Dev. He was recording at this studio, and he was like, come to this studio. And I was ringing the doorbell, and then the door opened, and Debbie Harry was walking out. And she held the door open for me, and I walked in. I was like, wow.
Say hi?
No, I don't think so. I was like, hey, thank you. But yeah, and that was kind of my first time I went to the studio, and he was there recording with some amazing jazz musicians, and they were working on these songs, and, you know, it was so fun for me to see this process. And he wanted me to improvise on something, and I was kind of like, uh-oh, like I'd never done that before, when it was very nerve-wracking to be thrown into that, you know, because I feel like you see the red record button go on, and like it's really hard to.
And they spend so much of their time doing it. It's your first time.
Yeah, so it was nerve-wracking, and anyway, we recorded something, and it was just a really fun day, and just wonderful to meet all these musicians and see how they worked, and
it's a different schedule
yeah,
of musicians.
yeah,
And it's exhausting. The studio can be exhausting. It's a lot of brain power.
yeah, it is. You know, I was having fun, but yeah, it was a wonderful experience. But yeah, I don't think that song ever came out.
And was that the first? Did you have it in after that? Were you like, was there an inkling of, oh, that was a lot of fun? Can I do this again?
You know, I think for me, I'd always known I was good at whistling, and as a lover of soundtracks and music, I'd always wanted this to be a possibility. Like, I'd always thought maybe one day I could be the whistler people call if they need whistling, because I knew whistling was needed in the world sometimes. And but yeah, I didn't really know how to be that person. When I moved to LA, I joined the Musicians Union because I thought that would help, because they have a book where, you know, they have it's the Rolodex of all the musicians who are in the union, and you know, if you need a clarinet player, you can turn to clarinet page. And
that's an old school idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so they did have a whistle section, and there were like 8 whistlers, and so I joined and added my name to the books, thinking like, well, maybe I'll get work this way, but I didn't get any work that way. No one called me. But I did start getting work just through word of mouth. And so every time I did something or met someone or performed somewhere, it would lead to something else. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I didn't move to LA thinking I was going to become a musician or a full-time musician, a whistler. Like, this was really very far from my mind. It just happened very slowly.
The thing that strikes me, okay, I don't know any other whistlers. I've never heard of any other whistlers. I think if you put a big name, you know, it's such a kind of niche thing. Were the other whistlers, were they kind of older than you, or were they kind of more like traditional than you? Because I think the thing that strikes me is that you're a young person as a whistler. There can't be too many of you.
Well, yeah, I kind of joked that when I went to my first competition, the median age was dead, because it was, you know, it's an older crowd. But yeah, it's you know, there aren't many other whistlers. The whistlers I know of or have known of have been older. But actually, I went to a competition last year. There was one in LA, and I went, and there were a lot more younger whistlers. But yeah, it isn't, you know, I think I've kind of wondered why it is an older person thing. And because I do hear people tell me a lot, like, oh, my grandmother or my grandfather was a great whistler. And I've thought maybe, you know, these days when we have our headphones in at all times and we can carry music with us at all times, there's no need to whistle. Like,
you're not taking the farm truck down.
Yeah,
how am I going to entertain myself?
Yeah, you don't need to, like, you know, carry a tune with you, or so I think back in the day it would have been an outlet for expressing music.
Yeah. Barbie is having such a profound impact. I mean, it's so, like, it's everywhere. Barbie was everywhere.
It's yeah.
It still is.
yeah, it's everywhere.
Meeting Ruth is fantastic.
Oh.
And your whistling makes it. And I'm not just saying that because we're sat opposite, but there is something about Barbie that transcends years, of course, of our memories of the doll. And there's something about whistling is a throwback to, you know, generations before us. It's amazing. It's such a wonderful track.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, you know, this is one of the best session jobs I've ever had. Just because I'm, as a huge fan of film soundtracks and movies. To be able to lend my whistle to this beautiful melody and this like really lush, like cinematic, full orchestral track was just so fun for me and, moving.
It's youthful.
Yeah.
It brings out the child in us.
Oh, yeah. It was, my parents were proud. That's the other thing. It's like, this is actually like big time. So, it's been obviously my parents know what I do, but for a while they were kind of like, how are you making money? Mm-hmm. But yeah, these days when something like that happens, they're like, wow. So that was a wonderful gig and so fun to play on something like that, and also just like something that's so permeating pop culture. It was pretty wild when it came out and everyone's like walking around in pink and going to the movies and so excited.
And a lot of great conversation. A lot of couples probably had some interesting conversations after watching that. Yeah. And knowing man's role in the world and knowing when we should shut up. And knowing how to kind of be progressive, that P word we talk about a lot. I talk about it with friends and my partner, and and watching that film, it adds to it's part of the conversation. Yeah,
I do think as far as mainstream films for marketed towards kids as well, like this was a film that everyone was seeing, and to have such a message like that.
A blunt message.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, good fun. Yeah. And good timing, because your debut record is out. It's your first album, isn't it, On the Lips?
It's my first LP. So I've released 2 EPs, and I mean, for me, I'm kind of like, what's the difference? Just a few songs more.
In the streaming world.
But it's my first debut LP.
Body of work.
Yeah. But I don't really know if there's like much crossover from the Barbie fans to my work. But
well, your name.
Yeah.
People know your name. I think that's the way we work. I think that I need to see a name about 3 or 5 times before I go listen to it.
Okay, yeah.
I think there's something in that.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So adding your name's in the mix.
Yeah.
Molly Lewis is a household name.
Wow, I don't know about that, but yeah.
Were some of those younger whistlers in the competition you went to, did you glean or get the idea that some of them had known of you?
Oh, yeah, some of them, yeah. It's,
they look up to you.
I mean, I do feel very lucky that I've been able to forge a career out of this. Like, this is a difficult path to take as a full-time job. This is not something that is easy to do. And there isn't much work in this area. And so, I do feel really lucky that I have become the whistler that people do call if they want whistling. Because I know, for other good whistlers, it's hard to get work. It's hard to get your name out there.
And take it seriously.
Yeah.
I think that's a big conversation in music. How do you take something that you love so much and it comes from a real internal place, and when you start an instrument, when you start composing music, it's got to be a bit of a secret that you hold very close to you. And then so to release that and then go one step further or a few steps further and be like, you trumpet it, you're like, this is what I want to do. That's scary.
Yeah, it is. And I still have trouble with that. I don't like the self-promotion. I would love it if I didn't have to do any of that, but it's all part of the job, That's how I am able to do this. It's
marketing.
Yes.
This is marketing right here.
Right. Yeah, right here, right now. This is fun, though. I'm just chatting. But yeah, I do always feel gross when I have to be like, please come to the show. Please buy tickets. Please, my new song's out. Not that I think that of others who are doing it. I'm grateful to know what my friends are up to and what other musicians are up to. But yeah, there's just something I find difficult about having to always, self-promotion.
And there's one of you. You're not in a band where you can share these anxieties or be like, is that the right wording for the poster? Or
Oh, I definitely bug my friends, you know.
you need it? That's
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah, I have, you know.
I'm sure they don't mind either because they're part of the project. They're producers. They're co-producers.
Yeah, no, there's a brain trust that helps, you know, with a lot of things.
Yeah. You ask friends, you're like, is this cool? What do you think of this name? What do you think about that idea?
Of course, all the time, you know. What do you think of this layout for the album cover? Like, what is this title better than this title? Like, what, you know, how does this sound? Yeah, I definitely need outside ears and eyes because I'm often too close to it, and I think it's hard to see it clearly a lot of the time.
What do you do to help yourself if you're in a funk? And everyone gets in funks. You know, the person that you look at who you think, oh, they must be the most confident person in the world. They definitely get in funks. It's human nature. But what do you, when you have that feeling of like doubt or worry, or what do you do to pull yourself out of it?
I talk to friends. Yeah, I've definitely, you know, it's funny. I feel very lucky that I have wonderful friends, and yeah, they also are mainly creative people who, I guess, like I'll talk to people who I know will understand.
You trust their judgment.
Yeah, or I know they've been through the same thing. Like I remember the first time two of my close friends in LA are Kira McNally and Mac DeMarco. Kira's his partner, and Kira's one of my best friends, and Mac is obviously a very famous musician and has been through a lot for many years as a full-time musician, and
the leader of the project.
Yeah, and you know, a face and a name, and you know, and so I remember the first time I did a show, or I think it was my EP came out, and I got this. There was this funny review online that I found. This is before I learned to like not read every comment and look at everything. And it just devastated me. It wasn't even that bad, but it was, you know, I just hated, like it really hurt. I forget even what it said now, but it was just kind of making fun of what I was doing, or, you know, calling it, I don't know, twee or something, where I was like, no, not
That's
twee. I'm not twee, please. But yeah, so I saw this and I was devastated, and I went over to Mac and Kira's house, and they were just laughing at me. They were like, Molly, like, that's nothing, you know? And Mac was like, you know, you should see some of the things that they've said about me. And anyway, but yeah, that was helpful, of course, to have other perspective and, you know, just friends you can laugh about something with. But yeah, so yeah, definitely having friends to talk to, or people who've been there before and experienced the same thing is helpful.
There's a lot to say for having humor and being like and laughing about it.
Totally. Also, that's the thing. It's like, it is really, really stupid and silly to be upset about like some random, oh God, what was it? Oh, it was.
No, don't go back.
Oh yeah,
don't put
no, I
yourself back
remember.
there.
Yeah, no.
101. It's stories, you know, it's memories, and I think, you know, I like to think we take the good ones with us.
Yeah.
You know, especially in time, probably going to look back on this period of your life and think, wow, that was probably a life-changing period of time.
Oh, big time. I'm always pinching myself and kind of amazed at, you know, where I've ended up and what's happening.
What's next? What's what like, rather not tour dates or like kind of stuff, but what's something you'd really love to do? What's something that you're kind of putting at the top of your brain mountain? Well,
I mean, I'd love to work on soundtracks, like compose for soundtracks. That's kind of my long-term goal. And I'd love to get to Japan.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that recently. I just want to go to Japan.
What's going on in Japan? The food?
I mean, I just think they're, you know, at the top of all their game with, you know, across different art forms.
Right.
And it would be
film and
yeah. Oh, you know, music and and food and, you know, just design. And yeah, I would love to, I'd like to just do something really different. Maybe like just a record with a koto player, or something.
What is a koto player? I was just like, yeah. What's a koto?
A Japanese instrument, kind of string instrument.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Just something kind of. I just want to do something different. And but yeah, that's. I don't really know.
I feel like it'd be hard for you to not do anything different. Everything for you is going to be different.
Well, the last 3 records have kind of been in the same world, and so I feel like that's why the next one I'd like it to be in a totally different world.
101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs.
What's the biggest fuck up that you've made in the workplace?
I always think about this one because now it's funny to think about, but well,
At the time, very painful.
the boss was nice about it, but yeah. So then when I was at this temporary job in the office, I got a promotion, which I was like, no, because I didn't want to be there, but I also needed the money and, needed the work. So I was like, okay. I guess I was really good at filling out all those background check forms.
You're a killer at it.
Yeah, scanning them. I was great at that. So I got basically like the assistant to the CEO was away for a couple months and they needed someone to fill her place. And so I got this like crazy promotion where I was his assistant for a few months. And he, I'd had some experience like, my resume must have said I did, but I, proficient in Excel. My resume said a lot of things.
You get the buzzwords.
But anyway, I had like my own office, my computer. And I had to kind of look after his schedule and make sure he was places at the right time and kind of let him know like, okay, you got to get in the car because you got a meeting. And this is many years ago, but he had a meeting with Elon Musk at SpaceX, and I kind of told him, I was like, okay, like you can leave now for the meeting. And anyway, he called me 20 minutes later from the car and he was like, there's too much traffic. You have to call and cancel. I'm not going to make it in time. Anyway, so now I look back on that. I'm like, whoa, I messed up his meeting with Elon. But
well, you didn't put the traffic there.
No, but I should have this is the job. I should have known, send him an hour earlier because there is so much traffic. This you have to be thinking ahead in ways that I even though my resume said I'm great at thinking ahead, I didn't do that. But he was cool. I'm sure.
So did you speak to Elon?
Oh, hell no.
Did you get on the phone?
No. I mean, I called some assistant somewhere, but no, I think about that sometimes, but it was fine. I can't really think of any other terrible ones. I've definitely, messed up in the waitressing world.
Mm-hmm. How were you as a waitress?
I was good. I was good. I worked at this really intense breakfast restaurant in Sydney, where it was like boot camp, like waitress boot camp. Like by the end of it, I was the best waitress of all time. I had it all down really pat. I knew people's orders when, the regulars. I didn't need to write anything down. It was like, and I kind of enjoyed just the way of thinking was so different because I was studying at school at the time and it was my part-time job. And yeah, it was just so different to this other kind of thinking. It was just memorizing and like kind of being, rote kind of way of being, and then you leave and it's out of your head. You're not thinking about it when you go home. But yeah, I would find that I was like, so it was really intense because it was so busy and you just run around for like, 8 hours, and then I would leave and I would be in the subservient kind of mindset still and I'd bump into a pole and I'd be like, oh, sorry, but yeah, it would take me a while to get out of like waitress zone. But I was good at it. It was intense. I learned a lot from Jackie. That was the name of the boss. It was Jackie's Cafe.
Even from having a wheelie bag at school, kind of being on your own path, being your own person, Did that carry through with you? Is that carried through with you to now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think like,
Because no one else, I mean, as we've been saying, you know, there's you're making your own,
yeah,
you're putting the paving slabs in front of
I've
yourself.
forged a very unique career. So, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, that, you know, I think,
Being stubborn.
yeah, I guess I've enjoyed being kind of my own person.
Yeah. That's radical in today's world.
I guess it's hard in today's world. I've noticed that with online, you know, it's just like, it's hard to, I think people are trying to be different and like, cause, you know, doing something different. Yeah, I've just noticed that online. It's like, you know, even with like the influencers you see and stuff, they're all just trying to be as kind of crazy and wild as possible for views and likes or whatever. And yeah, it seems hard to stand out in any way. But yeah, I guess this is different. There aren't many whistlers on the scene, so
That's it. And I do believe, like, if you're doing something that comes from a good place, when you don't try and do it, that's kind of when it starts feeling
yeah,
good, right?
totally.
You start meeting the right people, be around people that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah,
I think reaching all the time doesn't feel like a, you know, in my experience, if you're always reaching for something, it kind of, it's maybe not the right way, but you always got to like apply yourself. So there's that balance.
yeah, it is a balance. But I think, you know, I don't know. My friend was talking to my friend recently, and she said the word thirsty about someone, and I you know,
Desperate.
yeah, like it's
Wearing
like,
too much purple. Purple's the colour of the desperate.
yeah, like, you know, it's like that's not a good look when and it's purple like your shirt. No, just like when you can tell someone is like desperate, but it's hard because you need to be. It's a fine balance. Like there's so much you need to strive for if you're trying to make a career out of something. But yeah, you know, you don't want to be desperate at the same time. But
Keep your head down. Keep on
I
doing
don't know.
it.
Yeah, I
I
guess.
don't fucking know. Who knows?
Yeah, I think if you're doing the thing you love, yeah, you know, just kind of striving for the thing you love and doing it well. Hopefully people notice.
That's it. Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you. That was nice.
I love my go-to whistle song is Dream a Little Dream.
Oh, that's a good one.
Wow.
It's a good one.
That feels like you're a bird.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of whistling, because if I whistle, it's like it's very at the front of the lips.
Yeah.
That like
I'm doing it in and out, so I can kind of continuously.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't need to like. I don't know.
Your lips are tight.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is that because it's a high register?
Yeah. Is that a? Yeah, lower is harder for me.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of 101 Part-Time Jobs with Molly Lewis. I hope you enjoyed that chat. I certainly did. What a life. What a pair of lips. Her new record, On the Lips, is out now, and it's a stellar listen. Go and listen to it. It's very soothing, very calming. It's about time I changed my wake-up alarm, actually. I think I might change it to that. If you're in a band or if you play music, you can head to DistroKid. And DistroKid, you can put out your records on Apple and Spotify, TikTok. And as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener, you can get 30% off your first year. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod and join 1 million other users in getting their music out there and making your own royalties. Take it into your own hands. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.
101
Hey Hawk fans, even if it's been years since you graduated, the Hawkeyes are your team for life. Well, you can have a Farm Bureau agent for life, and auto, and home and business insurance. Imagine that, one insurance agent for everything. It's that simple. Former Hawkeye and All-American Mitch King can be your Farm Bureau agent for life. Call Mitch at 319-653-5428. Tell him the walk-on sent you. That's 319-653-5428. It's your future. Let's protect it. Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company.